Rams house. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports. My name is Jackson Durham, and guys, it is Mock Draft Friday. Today, we are going through a 7-round Rams mock draft. All of the Rams picks in the NFL draft will be used today. All 7 of our selections in a 7-round mock draft. Pretty fitting. Unfortunately, we don't have picks in all 7 rounds. Let's get familiar with the Rams' selection of picks. And I say unfortunately, but I don't really even mean it because I'm pretty happy with what we got in exchange for some of those picks. Obviously, we spent our own first-round pick, our own 5th-round pick, and our own 6th-round pick, and also next year's 3rd on the massive monster trade for Trent McDuffie, an enormous and much-needed addition to our secondary, but it still leaves us with the 13th overall pick. Thank you, Atlanta, for the silly trade that they made last year to move up into the 1st round and take James Pierce. 2nd round, we have the 61st overall selection. The 3rd round, we have the 93rd overall pick, and then we got to wait a long time to pick again. 207th in the 6th round. 7th round, we have the 203rd, and then we have 2 compensatory 7th round picks, the 201st and the 252nd overall selection in that round. But hey, before we get into this draft, I want to hear from you guys. We're planning on doing Mock Draft Fridays as a weekly tradition. One mock draft a week is the current plan. But if you guys let me know by spamming me in the comment section of today's video that you want even more draft content, we can take it up a notch. I'm fine with going to 2 mock drafts a week if that's what the Ramily wants to see, but I need you guys to let me know that that's the type of content you want to see. And it doesn't have to all be mock drafts. We could do other styles of draft content as well. We could go position by position, talk about best fits for the Rams. We can react to other people's mock drafts, all sorts of things that we can cook up here for you guys for the Rams house. So let me know in the comment section that that's what you want by spamming me. Comment me as many times as you want and sound off for me in the comments. But let's get into today's mock draft. Without further ado, first overall, as he goes in every mock, is Fernando Mendoza to the Las Vegas Raiders. The draft really begins at 2, as I often say, and this one was interesting. The Jets get Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. He'll be one of 2 Ohio State Buckeyes that go off the board in the top 5 here. Ruben Bain, someone the Rams met with at the Combine, goes 3rd to the Arizona Cardinals. He'll be annoying to see in division, not going to lie to you guys. David Bailey goes 4th to the Tennessee Titans. Good pick for Tennessee. Again, another edge that I would have liked, but he's off the board here. Arvell Reese, another guy right off of the board at 5th to the New York Giants. That's the 2nd of the 2 Ohio State Buckeyes in the top 5. Good draft for Ohio State if this is how it was to go in real life. Francis Maui-Noah becomes a Cleveland Brown at 6. So far, so good for the Rams. Not too many guys other than Ruben Bain off the board that we would have liked to pick at 13, at least so far. Caleb Downs goes 7th to the Washington Commanders. Jeremiah Love falls in right behind him at 8th to the New Orleans Saints. And that's kind of the first guy that you're like, darn, would have liked him at 13. Just don't think it's realistic. And I don't really like the idea of the Rams trading up to pick him. I think that's giving up too much for a total luxury, to be completely honest with you. I think you probably have to move off of Kyron in a deal like that. And I don't like that idea. I like Kyron. I want to keep him around. 9th overall, Mansour Delane goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. They get a replacement for Trent McDuffie, who they gave us. And that brings us to the final 3 picks before we are on the board. Cincinnati, they get Carnell Tate. And this is the first, real darn moment for the Rams, right? Carnell Tate, we've talked about a lot as one of the better fits for the Rams at wide receiver. Is it realistic that he's going to be there? I don't really know. To be honest with you, his range of outcomes is pretty wide. It feels like that way for a lot of guys in this draft class. It feels like the board is very much unsettled in that top 15 beyond the first pick. So is there a chance that Tate's there for us? Absolutely, but it feels like a pretty slim one. Dylan Thieneman falls in right behind him to the Miami Dolphins. That safety's been flying up the board. If you remember all the way back to our first Rams mock draft that we did, he was our 3rd round pick in that one. So crazy how things change. Monroe Freeling goes to the Dallas Cowboys at 12, and then finally we are on the board. So let's talk about who's in play for the Rams at 13. Kenyon Sadiq, I know, is a crowd favorite. You could add another tight end, go really, really heavy on 13 personnel. Hell, the Rams might run everything out of 13 personnel next season if they actually did go out and add Kenyon Sadiq at the 13th overall pick. That would be a crazy tight end room with Terrence Ferguson and Sadiq reuniting from their Oregon days. Then you also have Jordyn Tyson, who's another interesting option. And I really, to be honest with you guys, was down to these two. Because at the end of the day, I think tight end room is set, at least as far as the first round goes. Maybe you could do that down the board. We'll see if we end up doing it today. But I like the idea of Terrence Ferguson developing. But we need an elite receiver, and I just can't get past Jordyn Tyson's medicals until I see him at his pro day. So until then, the pick remains Makai Lemon at the 13th overall pick. I'm not changing anything, guys. We're going Makai again. And why? Because he's a fantastic fit for this football team. I really think he was one of the best receivers in all of college football last year. He won the Biletnikoff Award at USC in 2025 with over 1,100 yards receiving and 11 touchdowns. He's a smaller guy, but he wins after the catch so consistently. His hands are excellent. Only 2 drops last season. And I just feel like he is exactly what you need in terms of the slot. He fills your slot role, and then you move Puka mostly to outside. Puka becomes the full-time outside receiver that he's absolutely capable of being, but we have used him in the slot quite heavily lately. But I like this quote from Daniel Jeremiah, and I think it applies very well to the Makai Lemon selection for the Rams. The draft process is very long. Do not get bored with great players. Makai Lemon is a great player, guys, and the fit with the Rams is fantastic. Get excited about it. Don't get bored just because you keep hearing about it. I know it's easy to do that. I know it's easy to kind of lull yourself to sleep with like, I hear about Makai Lemon to the Rams all the time. Jordyn Tyson might be a little more exciting. A different position might be a little more exciting. We don't do that as much in mock drafts. But just because it's a little bit maybe boring because you've heard about it a lot doesn't mean it isn't the right selection. Doesn't mean it isn't exactly what this football team needs to go to the next level on offense. This 3 is unstoppable. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There is no team in the NFL that can cover you consistently if you have all 3 of those guys on the football field, man. I just get fired up at the idea of having that kind of an offense. An offense that would genuinely be number 1 in the NFL, I think, by a country mile. You'd be having some massacres out there. It would be awesome to watch Stafford get to throw to that group. Just unbelievable stuff right there. Let's keep rolling, though. On to the 61st overall pick. And I'll tell you guys, there's a guy on this list that is such a no-brainer. I almost considered not even having our in-play graphic. But I wanted to talk about a couple of positions that you also could consider here. Offensive line, absolutely worth adding depth to. Caleb Tiernan is interesting. I think he's a really talented player. I just think his primary fit is going to be guard at the next level, and I think our need to upgrade at depth is more of a tackle situation. But I know a lot of people would have him in mind because he did play tackle at the college level, so technically we're passing on a tackle here that is a good player. But I just don't think he's a true tackle at the NFL level. Davison Igbinosun, you could continue to add depth to the corner room, which I think is needed. I think we haven't quite done enough yet in that room. Obviously, Akella Witherspoon signs with the Commanders 2 days ago at this point. I kind of projected that loss would happen. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but you do need depth. You do need somebody to be there that you trust if injuries come up. And then Josiah Trotter was somebody that the Rams met with. But there's a better linebacker available than Josiah Trotter, guys, and that is Jake Golday out of Cincinnati. Man, would this be a steal. This would be highway robbery, guys. Absolute home run, A+, race the card in. How on earth did everybody else miss this cat? Literal Bearcat, because he played at Cincinnati. But an absolute home run pick here. This guy is perfect for the Rams in a lot of ways, in my opinion. He's exactly what you need because he's so versatile. I think he could play outside linebacker and maybe give Jared Verse a little bit of a break because he is capable of getting after the passer. You see that 3.5 sacks in 2025, and he had some sacks in every year where he was a full-time starter. But where he really thrives, where he really shines, is where we need a linebacker to shine, and that's in run defense. Think back to the NFC Championship game. How many times did Ken Walker juke Omar Speights out of his shoes? Like 6, probably. I mean, there's a lot of examples of that. I've seen the tape. Everybody else has. We don't need to talk about it too much. But Golday doesn't miss on those. Golday finishes plays in the run game. He plays with authority. He plays with an energy, and he is ready to hit some dudes. Where he struggles is coverage, man. That's the one area of weakness for him. But he plays with enough energy and enough passion that I think he's incredibly coachable, so I think he can take a step in that area. And what's really fascinating about Golday is some news that broke right as me and Mike were getting set up to film this video for you guys. Ari Pulley tweets out the Rams set a representative to meet with Cincinnati linebacker Jake Golday, sources said, something the team does in place of 30 visits. Golday also has a visit scheduled with the Bengals. It'll be considered a local visit, blah, blah, blah. We don't care about the Bengals. This is interesting, though, right? If the Rams sent out a representative to Cincinnati's Pro Day to meet with Jake Golday, maybe even for a private workout, there's clear interest there. Just like we talked about with Garrett Nussmeier yesterday, or earlier this morning, when we talked about the draft meeting that the Rams had with him, that would be just clear interest there. The Rams don't do a lot of meetings with prospects. When they do, it's significant. So Jake Golday, absolutely somebody that the Rams could consider and would be an absolute home run at 61. To be honest with you guys, though, is it very likely that Golday is going to be there at 61? Maybe not. I think he might be somebody that the Rams would have to trade up for in reality. But even then, I think it would be worth doing. I don't think you have to jump up too high from 61 to go get him, maybe 8 or 9 spots. But if he's sliding like he did in this mock draft, he would absolutely be worth taking. Of course, he ends up falling right into our lap here. Again, it's the PFF mock draft simulator. I don't know how realistic that is in real life. But if this was the pick in the second round, even if it had to be 6 or 7 spots earlier, not to do the meme, I would absolutely be thrilled with the Rams coming away with Jake Golday on day 2. But now we're going to make a bit of a move here. We're going to trade down. I know it's very Ramsey of us to do this. To move down on day 2, we're going out of the 3rd round, and we're doing something a little rare for the Rams. We're trading with a divisional rival. I know. We pretty much never do that. But we're sending our 3rd round pick, the 93rd overall selection, to Arizona in exchange for 104 and 143, getting us back into the 4th and in another pick in the 5th round of the NFL draft, and dropping our 3rd round pick, but only moving down 11 spots to add that extra 5th rounder is a really good trade, in my opinion. This is a trade that we actually win by the Rich Hill trade value chart, and it still went through on the PFF mock draft simulator. So a pretty realistic one, in my opinion. And it sets us up to do something that we talked a little bit about earlier today. If you watched our other video, draft a potential heir for Matthew Stafford in the 4th round in Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. The Nuss Bus lands in Los Angeles. The Nuss Bus has arrived. And look, at the end of the day, Mike is laughing at me right now. Producer Mike is laughing because I get it. Garrett Nussmeier has some issues in 2025. There were situations that came up with him with injuries. We talked about that today. But the Rams have clear interest here. The draft meeting, which we discussed, is incredibly significant. If the Rams truly feel that Garrett Nussmeier could be the successor, then taking him in the 4th round would be a home run. It's incredibly rare that day 3 picks become franchise quarterbacks. But it's worth taking a swing if you think that there's a chance. And again, We talked about this earlier today. If you haven't already checked out this video, I know I've made reference to it a couple of times. It's definitely worth your time. There's some significant information in here about some Rams draft visits. Obviously, with Garrett Nussmeier, the Rams traveling out to Baton Rouge. That's one of the primary headlines from that video, not to spoil too much. But after you get through this one, definitely go check it out because we talk about A, ESPN's feelings on the Rams' needs in the draft, and B, some confirmed Rams draft meetings and what they might signal about what the Rams will do on draft day, a lot of which we've applied to this mock draft, as you could probably notice. But let's keep rolling with Garrett Nussmeier because, again, like I talked about, like Mike is laughing about, 2025, not the best season for Garrett Nussmeier at the end of the day. 9 games played. They had to pull him because of an injury. He talked about that injury in that video that I referenced to us at the Combine. When we interviewed him, he spoke about the injury that he dealt with, about the struggles that it was because LSU staff couldn't even really figure out what was wrong with him or how to address it. So they just left him in action, and it was obviously terrible for him. Things just didn't really go that well. He didn't take the step that he was expected to take. But you go back to 2024, and in August of that year, way too early mock drafts had him as the 10th overall pick. People were projecting this guy as the next Giants quarterback in some mock drafts. Like, it is unbelievable how far things have changed. Of course, that happens every year, but if you could get that guy in the 4th round and actually turn him into the guy that people thought he might be able to be just a couple of months ago, that'd be a huge win for you. And think about the guy he would get to learn from. Well, really, the guys he would get to learn from. Obviously, Matthew Stafford, future gold jacket quarterback, is going to be the starter next season. But you have Garrett Nussmeier, who stylistically ain't so different from Matthew Stafford at the end of the day, sitting behind him as QB2, learning all the time. I don't know if we're going to bring Jimmy back. If we do bring Jimmy back, then Stetson's job is probably on the line if you make this decision. If you don't bring Jimmy back, then I could see it going Stafford, Nussmeier, Bennett. But again, if Jimmy's back as the veteran in that room, if they don't want Nussmeier playing, even if Stafford's injury, or if a Stafford injury did occur, then I feel like Bennett and Nussmeier are competing for that QB3 job. There's no way you're going to carry 4 quarterbacks in the regular season. One of those guys would get either released or relegated to the practice squad. And obviously, that would be Stetson Bennett. You're not going to release a 4th-round pick that you just drafted. But at the end of the day, obviously he's learning from Matthew Stafford, but he's also learning from Sean McVay, who's had a ton of success with quarterbacks in his career. Even guys who've taken bad turns lately. Think about Jared Goff coming off a horrific 2015. Think about Baker Mayfield. A lot of people had written that guy off in his career entirely. He lands in Los Angeles and turns everything around. Garrett Nussmeier is not too far gone for Sean McVay, in my opinion, the greatest coach in the NFL right now, and when it's all said and done, I think he might be the greatest coach ever, bar Bill Belichick, who, hey, it's hard to get ahead of Bill Belichick. But Sean McVay is going to be up there. When the whole thing is finished, he's already up there right now. I know he could work with Nussmeier. If anyone can make this happen, it is Sean McVay. And if anyone can afford to do it, it's you. It's the Rams. You have a lot of draft capital in this draft, especially on day 3. You've got plenty of 7th-round picks to take some swings with, including now an additional 5th because of this trade that you just made with Arizona. You can afford to take a swing on a quarterback with how set your roster is. And even if it doesn't work out, who cares? We spent a 4th-round pick on it. Doesn't matter. We move on. We're still dominant. We're still the best team in the NFL. We've got the best roster in the NFL, even if Garrett Nussmeier doesn't work out. And we could turn around and maybe go trade for Joe Burrow next offseason. Doesn't prevent you from doing that. You just spent a 4th. Let's keep rolling, though. 5th round, 145th overall. The last pick we're going to dive into in as much depth as we have been all of the other ones. Isaiah World, offensive tackle out of Oregon. And World is worth our time. I will tell you, because he is a massive human being. 6'8", 318 pounds. Number 1 transfer in the transfer portal last year when he left Nevada, where he'd been for a little while, just kind of learning. He started as a guard, if you can imagine that, this human being playing guard. Continued to grow in his collegiate career, and they were just like, it no longer makes sense to play. You get guard. You're just too big. We got to kick you out to tackle. And that's where he's played ever since. He finished at Nevada at left tackle and then played at Oregon at left tackle. Obviously helped the Ducks make the college football playoff and make a pretty nice run. He would fit in this depth chart to me as a depth piece. Again, he's not a guard at the NFL level. He is simply too large to play guard at 6'8", 318 pounds. But he is a solid depth piece for both of your tackle spots. I think he can play either side. He was a left tackle at the collegiate level, but I think he could translate to right tackle as well. And I think what at the end of the day he is a moldable ball of clay. Something that Alaric Jackson was when you first drafted him. Something that Warren McClendon was when you first drafted him. That's what the Rams look for in offensive tackles. Moldable projects. Guys with the tools because they can coach the technique. And I think that's exactly what Isaiah World is at the end of the day. He's got some learning to do. Even though he's got a lot of experience under his belt, it's not all at the highest level. Just one season at the Big Ten. A year or two in our coaching system, he will be a solid contributor. Let's roll on to our 6th and 7th rounders. We got 4 of these picks. We're going to give them each a little bit of time, but mostly just kind of roll through here on a bit of a lightning round to save a little time. 6th round, 207th overall. We're going to take a primary special teamer in Lorenzo Styles. Depth for the corner position. Don't really expect him to actually contribute at that position, but what he is a fantastic special teams returner for you. Unbelievable at Ohio State as both a punt returner and kick returner. Would love to have him. Everybody watching this video that's a Rams fan and watched the NFC Championship last year knows exactly why it's worth spending a 6th round pick on this, even though it's not very Rams thing to do to draft a special teamer. We mostly get those in the undrafted department. Moving on to the 7th round, we get a backup center for Coleman Shelton. Parker Brailsford, the Alabama player. You know, when you're drafting Alabama offensive linemen, I think you're taking the right stabs at the end of the day. Guys who've come from good coaching backgrounds, guys who are really solid athletes. Brailsford at the end of the day, I don't think will be an early contributor, but could with the right development go on to replace Coleman Shelton. Roman Hemby out of Indiana, national champion with the Indiana Hoosiers this year, and before that he was with James Madison, if I remember correctly as well. Really solid running back, kind of a one-cut, just downhill runner, not really going to make anybody miss, but if he gets out and going, he is gone. The speed is there. It's not 4.3 at all, but he absolutely has the speed to be a home run back. Good rotational guy for our room, and the Rams have drafted a running back in every draft every year since 2018, so I do not expect that trend to change this season either. Lastly, Devonta Smith out of Notre Dame is the final selection for the Rams. Another corner, but this one I do actually expect to contribute at corner. I think that'll be his primary contribution to this team is as a solid depth piece for the corner room. There's one thing I could give a knock on in this draft. I wish we were able to get to a corner earlier, but ones that I wanted in the mid-rounds just really weren't there for me. So this is the way the board fell, and I want you to give me a grade. Give it a grade from A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments how you're feeling about this mock draft. Would you be excited if this is the way the board fell for the Rams on draft night, if this is who we got at every selection? Because to be honest with you guys, I absolutely think that this would be a phenomenal mock draft for the Los Angeles Rams. This would be a huge win if we were able to get all of these players. I would just love the way that the board fell for us. So let me know in the comments, how would you be feeling about this mock draft? I want you to rate it. Give it an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. As always, let's go Los Angeles Rams.